CPM for the opportunity to talk about PGMs in Duluth Metals. This is a dimension of Duluth that we think needs more exposure. We have a very large deposit and a very large development project in northern Minnesota. And sometimes the PGMs get lost in a sea of copper and sea of nickel. So we welcome this opportunity to talk about PGMs. This is our typical cautionary and forward-looking statement. The PGM story within Duluth Metals is really twofold. We already have, on a qualified resource basis, a very significant deposition of precious metals. This is a growing story. We are, in effect, we've published contained metals on one of our four resources, and so effectively on an indicated and inferred basis based on the 2009 43101 resource study, we had something in the order of 17.5 million ounces of palladium, platinum, and gold in that order. That was on one of four resources. We have a new AMEC resource study underway in final stages of completion. We hope to see the results of that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and that will factor in the additional resources and also the results from additional drilling. So we will have some updated numbers on the qualified PGMs within the Duluth Metals Twin Metals project. Twin Metals is our joint venture with Antofagasta PLC, and that is, as I say, we're going to focus on 3 parts today to the Duluth PGM story. There will be the Twin Metals qualified numbers. We'll take a look at the very exciting exploration program, which is outside the joint venture, and we believe that some of the targets we're going after in that exploration program are PGM-oriented, so we'll talk about the PGM exploration program within Duluth Metals right in our Minnesota backyard. Platinum group metals in Minnesota. That is something that is probably somewhat of a story that is not familiar with many people, and that's really, I think, an excitement. When I listened to the first presentation on supply and demand for PGMs, the possibility of having some serious additional PGM production within the United States, we think that is very positive. And we quite frankly think our exploration team in Duluth Metals is one of the best in America. They obviously have an expertise in the Duluth complex region, and as I say, part of our exciting exploration program is definitely slanted towards platinum and palladium. First part of the presentation, just a bit of background on our setting. We like being in the United States. We like being in Minnesota. As you're aware, in a lot of jurisdictions around the world, there are many challenges, and we quite frankly are very pleased to be part of a 130-year of mining history in northern Minnesota. And I think one of the key aspects of that location is infrastructure. And we all know that some great deposits can be found in very challenging geography, and from a point of view of infrastructure investment, you can be spending billions of dollars before you even start on the mine site. That is not the case in Minnesota. We have 130 years of iron mining. We have an established mining district. our project actually borders Cleveland Cliffs' major taconite operation, the North Shore operation, which is it's a 10-mile long open pit taconite operation, which will be mining probably at least another 60 or 80 years. There has been consolidation in the iron range in Minnesota. You're looking at, a slide that features some of the main ferrous projects, and essentially we're some of the big boys that are involved in the iron business in Minnesota are U.S. Steel, Esser, Metall, and Cleveland Cliffs. Top metal mining states in the USA, according to the USGS. Some of the states in the Union are not terribly friendly towards mining. We're in a state that likes mining, and Minnesota is certainly, as I say, I think one of the states that really has been built on mining. Very strong political support from both parties in the state of Minnesota towards mining. And again, we're really pleased to be part of that history, 130 years of mining history in Minnesota. We talked about infrastructure. I think this is a very interesting slide because it points out what is already in existence. And in our site, basically in northern Minnesota, being at the northeast end of the Iron Range, we have tremendous infrastructure near our project. There's rail, there's power, there's roads, there's 4 deep water ports on Lake Superior that you can ship material, concentrate, or metal 10 months of the year, 10 and a half months of the year, depending on the length of the winter. You can ship around the world through the seaway. So you also have labor, a highly productive labor force. You've got schools for training. You've got equipment dealers. There's a cat dealer just down the road. So I think the infrastructure in Minnesota is outstanding, and we're very fortunate to have all that in place. Second part of the story is today is to talk about our Twin Metals project, which is our development project in joint venture with Antofagasta PLC. We are in pre-feasibility right now on a very large development project. This is an proposed underground operation, not open pit, and it is a polymetallic copper, nickel, PGM project. Antofagasta is a company that a lot of you are familiar with. It's an outstanding partner for Duluth Metals. In selecting Antofagasta as our partner, we really wanted to achieve mitigation of 2 of our primary risks, and we think we've done that in terms of mitigating our financing risk as well as the execution risk on a multi-billion-dollar projected project. I think that Antofagasta has got a track record of success on developing these large mega greenfield mining projects. Tremendous growth over the last 12 years. I believe their copper output has gone from 70,000 tons back about 12, 13 years ago to their current guidance for this year is 700,000 tons. Highly respected firm in the copper world. We think they're a great partner for us in Minnesota. Twin Metals project. This is a map that shows the real estate, the property block that is involved with the Twin Metals project. You will see 4 different deposits that are on this map. We just announced on Monday of this week that in fact 2 of the deposits in the middle of this page are in fact one deposit. That was the Old Maturi and the Nokomis, and we've decided to move forward by calling that a single deposit, which is the Maturi, but there historically are 2 separate resources. Those obviously will be merged in the upcoming AMIC report. The other two resources deposits that you can see on this map are the Spruce Road deposit and the Birch Lake deposit. Our technical team believes that, in fact, all these deposits will eventually join up into being one singular tabular deposit. We actually have over here a feeder dike. So the source of all this mineralization is a magmatic flow out of a feeder dike up here on the right-hand side of the page. We call that the Nickel Lake macrodite. So we've had a massive flow of mineralized magma has squeezed through existing rock formations, has basically passed through all this property block. We've only explored, we've only drilled, roughly 50% of this property, and the drilling success has been, nothing short of amazing. Virtually every hole we drill hits this tabular formation. So it's going to be interesting with AMEC to take a look at where they actually draw the new boundaries of the updated resources. And I think that one should point out that there still is probably 50% of the ground is not even included in their numbers. So we have 4 resources. 3 of the 4 were picked up in an acquisition of our next door neighbor, a company called Franconia. We completed that acquisition back in March of last year, and we effectively believe what we've done is we've bought our deposit across our neighbor's property boundary. So this is an amazing deposit. It's getting bigger. I think we're very fortunate to have it in its location in the United States, and this is the focus of a tremendous development effort that we have undertaken with Antofagasta PLC. These are the historic numbers of those 4 qualified resources. As I say, it'll be very interesting to see the update, which we're expecting within the next couple of weeks. This is just a slide highlighting the AMEC updated report. We should point out in our press release on Monday, we announced that there are, beyond this upcoming report, we have a further 170 drill holes to add into the next AMEC report, which we believe will be delivered sometime in the month of September. So we already have, given the extent of the drill program which we undertook during the winter, we had 11 drill rigs turning on the Twin Metals project. So the next report from AMEC, which we're expecting in September, will include an additional 170 holes and will give much more clarity to a concept which is certainly coming through in our press releases, is that within this monster deposit, there are going to be some very exciting higher grade zones within the global resource, within the global deposit. So we're looking forward to both AMEC reports, and that should be, as I say, the first interim estimate should be out in a couple of weeks. This is a slide which gives you an idea of the impressive contained metal which is in the this deposit. Now, we've only published contained metal historically on one of the 4, which is the Nokomis deposit, and this effectively shows you both the base metal and precious metal contained metal within the one resource, being the formerly known as the Nokomis. We also have to point out that if you look at this contained metal, we will be publishing new numbers based on the upcoming AMEC, and that will obviously go up since we are adding the 3 additional resources from Franconia. Now, talking about PGMs within the bigger story, this is a slide which features the historic contained metal within the Nokomis, which was published in 2009 based on the 43101 resource study. Pretty impressive contained metal. Certainly one of the larger deposits of platinum and palladium outside of South Africa. This will grow, as we point out on this slide. We will be adding in new numbers from the Birch Lake, Maturi, and Spruce Road qualified resources. You can see the historical tonnage and grade from the earlier slide based on the historical resources. So there will be significant additional PGMs coming out in the updated AMEC 43101 interim estimate. Plus, we see additional potential PGMs arising out of our very exciting exploration portfolio. I should point out, too, what I said earlier is that within the Twin Metals project, because the exploration that I just referred to is actually outside the Twin Metals project, within the Twin Metals project, there still is the remaining 50% of the property block that has not been drilled, which will obviously have some carry and needs to be obviously drilled off to be qualified. We are currently in a pre-feasibility stage with Bechtel. We're looking at a number of different scenarios. Obviously, with this size of deposit, the scale of operation can be very large, so we are in the middle of trying to give some definition to mine plan and mine scale, and that will be the focus within pre-feasibility over the next few months. I'd like to talk a bit about the exploration side to Duluth Metals, which again is outside of the JV, and that is exploring for PGMs in Minnesota. This is a slide which outlines the holdings, the land holdings that are split within Duluth Metals. We have the yellow features the land block within the Twin Metals joint venture, and the red are the exploration assets that are outside the joint venture. We effectively have about 40,000 acres of property, which is outside the joint venture, featured in red. I'd like to point out that the map depicts certain land parcels that are pending with the federal government. These two areas up here on the north are particularly attractive. We believe under discussions with the various agencies that the possibility that we will be seeing the issuance of prospecting permits on these properties is possible as early as September of this year. The exploration programs that we have within Duluth Metals really feature the Nickel Lake macrodike as a prime target area. This is over here. This is the feeder dike that we referred to earlier. This is the basin, the bowl, so to speak. All the mineralization that occurred on the northern wall of this basin, which is the Twin Metals mineralization over here, featured is the Nokomis in red. The mineralization literally goes for miles along this northern face. Our geological team thinks there's outstanding potential right here at the mouth of the feeder dike for higher grade material and along this southern wall. So this is the focus of what we think will be a very exciting Q4 in Duluth Metals. We obviously have to get the pending application, pending prospecting permits from the federal government, and we're hopeful of receiving those permits late August, early September. But this macrodike is very important, and that's really, as I say, the focal point of the exploration. We are looking for higher grade PGMs than what exist in the Twin Metals mineralization. There's an interesting correlation within the Twin Metals project. As we go from west to east, there is an increasing grade that is showing up, And that is why we think that the mouth of this feeder dike could hold the possibility of higher grade PGMs and higher grade nickel. The correlation here is just a couple of slides which feature that factor of PGM grades improving as we move from west to east. We featured 3 holes here which really reflect that tendency, that trend. Here is a bar chart to sort of show that as you move from west to east with these 3 holes, that in fact you do have an increasing grade tendency within the deposit. The Nickel Lake macrodike is, as I say, the focus of where we think potential high grade could exist. We are putting, our technical team has put a lot of great geological thinking and testing into this model. It still is a model. It has to be tested. We look forward to either proving the model or disproving the model once we get access from the federal government, and we will be basically looking right at the mouth of the feeder dike for the higher grade targets that we've talked about. This is just sort of a summary snapshot on Duluth Metals. We currently have about 125 million shares issued and outstanding. Our major shareholders, Antofagasta is a 40% owner at the project level. They've also become our largest shareholder at the public company level of Duluth. They currently own approximately 14 million shares, or 11% of the company. Some of the big institutional holders of Duluth Metals are featured on this slide. We have 3 major institutions that have over 7 million shares each. That would be Oppenheimer from New York, Columbia Wanger from Chicago, and JP Morgan from London. We also have Mackenzie out of Toronto that has a significant stake in the 3 to 4 million share range. Wellington out of Boston, Capital Group out of California are in the 3 million share range. So we have a very impressive lineup of institutional holders, and we're very excited about the prospects within Duluth. We're very excited about the PGM prospects within Duluth, and we look forward to continuing that exploration in Q4. And the ongoing development of the Twin Metals project is a very large and substantive part of our story. So thank you, and we can take some questions.
Chris, perhaps you could give us a little bit of a sense of the scale of Antofagasta's capital contributions to Duluth.
Yes, we have a very, very strong contractual relationship with Antofagasta. The Antofagasta history is they took 7 months of extensive due diligence before they put any money into our project. They did a lot of consulting work and due diligence. Their first investment into Minnesota, into our project, was in January 2010. Currently today, they have over $190 million invested into our company, our project. I would break that 190 down into 3 components. I mentioned they were our largest shareholder, so they've invested approximately $30 million into Duluth shares. They invested approximately $30 million into the acquisition of Franconia, which we closed last March. We bought that public company in the same proportion as the ownership of the joint venture company Twin Metals, and then we then pushed all the assets down into the Twin Metals joint venture. So $30 million from Anto went into the acquisition, and Antofagasta has invested $130 million of cash into the Twin Metals joint venture company. So you've got 130 into Twin Metals, 30 into Franconia, and 30 into Duluth shares. The arrangements with Antofagasta is a very comprehensive joint venture contract, joint venture agreements. It is available on CEDAR. But I should highlight a few features of that, Doug, that we really think that the arrangements go a long way for a junior company such as ourselves to see a project all the way into production. So there's two components to that. I'm going to start from the rear first, which is the big project financing. We don't know yet what the scale and what the size of our project will be. That's what pre-feasibility is all about. But we potentially could be looking at a $2, $3, or $4 billion CapEx. And so from that perspective, we have planned within the agreements that we believe our shareholders are going to be well covered during for the large project finance phase. We think the equity component that Duluth would have to put into that size of investment will come from a feature of the joint venture, which is a 25% call option. Antofagasta has the option to increase from a 40% ownership to a 65% ownership, and it's based on a formula basis, 1 times NAV, derived off of the bankable fees. So that should be where Duluth, in fact, will draw its equity for the eventual project finance. And on the debt side, we've got undertakings in the contracts that Antofagasta will organize the debt syndication. Anto has a great track record in doing bank syndications on their other projects, and we have a package of sort of components that go into that debt, including Antofagasta has agreed to put their senior covenant on a several basis into the bank syndication. That's a very strong covenant. Together with all the metal offtake and forward selling available, we're quite confident that we can sort of ride on the shoulders of Antofagasta on the bank syndication. So we're in very good shape at the back end, which is usually where the junior companies get hammered, and we think that we've covered off that risk quite nicely. Now let's talk a bit about the front end, which is to get to pre-construction. We effectively have a $158 million spending envelope that is really coming from Antofagasta before Duluth has to put in a contribution from its own treasury. We also have a concept of disproportionate funding, such that in the event that we require money above $158 million, and we will, this project is growing in size, so I'm here, and we most definitely will be spending more than $158 million. But we have a concept that, in fact, Antofagasta has, for every dollar above $158 million, they put in 65 cents, and Duluth puts in 35 cents. So while we own 60% of the equity, we only have to contribute 35% of those costs. So we think we've got a very strong joint venture arrangement with a very high-quality partner, and we think that whether the project is $2 billion, $3 billion, or $4 billion, we're in very good shape. Question over here.
Are they more of a financial partner than an operating partner?
No, absolutely not. We're very realistic within Duluth Metals. We've got a very strong management team, but when you start walking into these giant development projects, you've got to be realistic. You've got to understand the risks. Antofagasta has a tremendous track record with Los Palambres and Esperanza. They know what they're doing. They've got the team, they've got the operating team, they've got the development team. So they are very definitely active. And in fact, the joint venture agreements are very dynamic. And Antofagasta is the operator during the development period under the terms and conditions of the joint venture agreements. So, they have put in some of their best personnel into the new management team of Twin Metals. So we've got the full force and talent and expertise of Antofagasta, and they are very, very active. So it's not just financing, and that's why I said we think we've got the execution risk pretty well mitigated by the nature and the type of joint venture that we've structured with Antofagasta. Question here.
Hi. So what are the sort of hurdles or the critical timeframes or whatever else you have to jump over to actually get to start building?
Well, again, this is a very large project, so we think with the size of the deposit, we clearly are looking at decades of production. So we have to get this project right. We have to take the time to engineer it, to optimize it, to plan it, and that takes time. So we are in pre-feasibility. We've got some of the world's best consultants working on this project in order to get it right and to get it properly sized. And that's, as I say, it's a tremendous effort, tremendous expenditure of money is going on during this development phase. So we've got pre-feasibility, then we have to move into bankable feasibility. During that period, we are working with the state of Minnesota in terms of the environmental review and permitting process. So all of this is running in parallel, and all I can say is that we're not going to put specific hard deadlines. We don't control the clock. We actually are very pleased with the support we're getting from the state of Minnesota. I have mentioned they have passed legislation to speed up environmental reviews and permitting in Minnesota. They've actually set up a cabinet subcommittee. So we're very much working in a collaborative fashion to bring this project on as fast as we can. But it is going to take time. Yes. That is a good question. Again, I think that we're right in the middle of decisions that will impact that delivery date. I think our sort of current thinking is that it won't be before 14 months from now. Mid-2013 was sort of the soft date. That could extend out depending on some of the decisions we take. But effectively, again, given the magnitude of this planning and engineering and the importance that the decisions that will be made over the next few months are really setting the template in the ground for a project that will be producing for decades. So we're thinking, as I say, that we want to take the time and get this right. There's a lot of metallurgical studies to be done, pilot testing. So right across the board in the various sections and components of this project, we will be taking the necessary time to get it right. Laura?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, as far as the communities around the project, could you speak a little bit about the communities and what your relationship is with them?
Yes. Part of the successful development process with a project of this nature is embracing and engaging the various communities. We are very active on that front. We think that we've got a very good story. We are an underground project, so from an environmental impact perspective, there are, let's say, lesser surface impacts, certainly, than an open pit. Nonetheless, we're up for that challenge. We've got very strong community support. We've got very strong political support. Obviously, there are still environmentalists that are going to be criticizing and challenging our efforts. We will be engaging with every constituency and trying to give them the story. We believe we've got a very sustainable, very responsible project on the planning boards, so we do have a policy of engagement. I think, Doug, that may be it, so...
I just had one more question.
One more question from Doug.
You mentioned political support in the state of Minnesota for your project and mining in general. Can you refer to any of the elected officials who have stepped up and spoken out loud about supporting a mining project?
Yes, I think that, again, if you understand the statewide politics in Minnesota, you know, you really, you've got the DFL, which is equivalent to the Democrats. You've got the Republicans controlling both the state houses, so the Senate and the House in Minnesota are both controlled by the Republicans. Governor Dayton is a DFL representative. We have support from both parties. The Iron Range, in terms of elected state senators and representatives, is very, very strongly supportive of mining in general. We have from the federal delegation, both senators support our project. Senator Klobuchar, Senator Franken are both have come out in favor of this project. So we really have very strong political support. And I think that really the 120 years of sort of mining and environmental interface in Minnesota serves us well. Minnesota is very rigorous in their environmental reviews, which they have to be in order to withstand, you know, the inevitable challenges that are out there. But we are very fortunate that at the political level, as well as the community level, we have very strong support. We had an interesting event last August where we inaugurated a new project office in our local community, Ely. Ely has a tremendous mining history by itself, but we had a ribbon-cutting ceremony and we threw an open house to the community. Our partners flew in from Antofagasta. The Twin Metals management team were all up there. It was really a very interesting event. We expected maybe 100 people would show up for that event. We literally had over 500 people lined up out onto Miners Drive, which is a street where we've put this new building. And it really was, I think, a testimony that, you know, a lot of the local people support mining because of the history. You know, the lack of jobs has been difficult for the families because the younger people have to move out of the area, you know, down to the big cities. And so there is, I think, a strong support at both the community and political level. Good. Well, thank you very much, and I'm available for our questions.